This week on the WriterCon podcast.
Figure out what you like to write and then figure out how to write it to market. I think that's the biggest challenge. I see a lot of new writers that say, I like to read this one very interesting, unique thing, but then when they try to write it, it kind of isn't matching anything in the market. And while you do want some uniqueness in what you're writing, you still need to satisfy reader expectations. So read what you love and then try to learn to write in a similar vein what you love.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files book series.
Hey there, writers. Thanks for joining me and Lara and Jesse. Hey, we got a lot of catching up to do. Since our last recording, we've had wild presidential conspiracy theories and the Grammy Awards, and last weekend the Super Bowl, and what's the common denominator in all of the above? Jesse?
Conspiracy?
Taylor
Lara.
Swift.
Oh,
Taylor Swift, of course.
She wins Final Jeopardy. And Taylor predictably figures in one of our news stories today. So, Lara, should I assume that you're a Swiftie now?
I am a fan of her music, and I have been since she first started crossing over into pop music. I can remember when I was listening to Love Story way back in the day.
Oh, but why is it a pop star that's dominating popular culture? Why isn't it a writer?
Ooh.
Well, you know, James Patterson has to take a vacation every once in a while. So.
He does dominate a lot of things. I'm not sure pop culture. I don't see him dating a
That would be
Kansas
amazing,
City's
though.
chief.
If we could fill those big arenas, and I could be up there in like the
Wouldn't
secret
it?
outfit with the boots, just reading out of my book.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
We should live there.
Cheering and going crazy. I would love that.
I feel like that could happen in England. Like they have a whole event. I don't know if you guys have seen these on YouTube, but like they have events where like they have celebrities and actors and whatnot, or like authors come read like random letters that are like funny or weird, like either historical letters or current letters that were like written to like the Telegraph or whatever, and they have like Benedict Cumberbatch read it, and they're very funny. And it's like in a full auditorium to just like hear people read letters, and I'm like, this is why England is in some ways better than us. So
I would be willing to let Benedict Cumberbatch read one of my books.
Yeah,
what do you
right?
think?
That'd be great.
Okay, our interview today is with a very special friend of WriterCon and friend of all of us, writer Lauren Smith, who is a Major League USA Today and internationally best-selling romance writer who I had the privilege of teaching in a small group retreat many years ago, which probably had nothing to do with her later success, but I'm going to brag about it anyway. Longtime listeners will recall that Lauren was interviewed in the first season of the podcast, like the 4th or 5th episode, but she's a busy person and we haven't managed to get her back yet until now, because she's not only on this podcast, she's also joining us for the WriterCon Cruise. So we'll talk to Lauren about all of that and more. But first, the news. All right, first news story today does not yet have anything to do with Taylor Swift, but has a lot to do with... Yet, right? But wait for Goblin butts. Now, you may recall... Yes, you heard me right. On a previous episode, we broke the biggest story of the year. Well, the biggest story for me anyway, the fact that one of my books was banned in Florida, even though no one can really figure out why a thriller published by Random House in 2005 offended someone, but whatever. I'm pleased because it put me in the company of some of the best writers who ever lived. And now I'm even more pleased because it puts me in the company of, you guessed it, Goblin butts. Yes, you heard me correctly. There it is. For those of you watching on YouTube, Jesse is showing you the offending book cover. You may remember a couple episodes when we made our prognostications for 2024. We anticipated more book banning, and what can I say? We've already got it right, because a Florida school district has drawn over the cover and other illustrations in multiple award-winning children's books in its libraries after the chair of the local Moms for Liberty chapter complained that some of the characters were naked.
Okay.
Kind of like you see nakedness in a very limited way sometimes in Maurice Sendak books and whatnot. But in this case, one of the offending characters, a goblin whose backside is vaguely visible. So a woman named Jennifer Pippin submitted multiple formal challenges at the end of last year. One of the books she took issue with is Unicorns Are the Worst, which won a Florida State Children's Literature Award. Why? Because the main character, a goblin, is shown with his butt facing the audience. Something someone probably thought was cute and funny, but apparently some people in Florida found it inappropriate. Who's correct? You decide. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the offending butt in question right now. And Jesse, can you bring up what it looked like after they literally drew pants onto the goblin in actual physical copies of the book?
Pants. He's
It looks
cleaning
like
his
overalls.
Yeah, also he's cleaning his pants on, like, that's the act he's doing. He's like, the smock would anyway. This is stupid. It's a stupid story.
Is it better? I mean, it's more boring, but
Well, first of all, it
Were
looks
you
incredibly
offended?
fake.
You what?
It looks incredibly fake, like the cover,
Yes.
the cover overalls.
Well, what do you expect? They just drew on it for Pete's sake.
Yeah, yeah. This is like, if listen, if you're really concerned about a goblin butt, first of all, goblins aren't real. Second of all, like, if you're into butts, that's a you thing, okay?
Yeah. Or if you're offended by them. But
Yeah, or if you're offended by it, that's also your thing. You know, kids see much worse than a goblin butt on a
I
daily
would
basis.
imagine so. Now, Laura,
Mm.
I hear rumors that you are a mother,
Mhm.
and you put several,
Newsflash.
and you put several children through public school.
I did.
Did you ever object to a book they brought home, or something you found in the school library, or anything
No.
like that?
No, I find books open doors to important conversations. Books that deal with issues are incredibly important to our children. This I wouldn't have considered an issue, but let's be honest, anytime a child would get silly or giggly about that, again, here's another news flash. Everyone has a butt. I really
Even
think
goblins.
even
Yes.
goblins. What do these parents do when they take their children to the zoo? Do they take them to the zoo? God forbid they see an animal use the restroom or anything like that. I think it's very important. From my perspective as a parent, I was always very matter of fact with my children about these things, and they didn't become fixated with them. They grew up
Mhm.
healthy and well adjusted. I think when we as parents make a big issue out of it, the children then develop a fixation and
True.
think that there should be some stigma surrounding this. And why are you going to make your child uncomfortable about their butt? We all have them.
I should add, in fairness to the state of Florida, that not everybody is on board with this. For instance, another parent, a man named David Flint, asked Moms for Liberty why they were, this is his words, sexualizing a drawing, quote, of a goblin's bare backside. It was not included to cause arousal and was of a fictional character. Flint also pointed out to another challenge from the same person to a book called Sofia Valdez, Future Prez, because, according to the claim, the main character's grandfather was shown in one scene wearing a pro-LGBTQ pin. Well, maybe, but the illustration is so small that it really could be anything. Somebody's seeing a pink triangle where there may not be one at all. And I mean, it's kind of related to the butts thing, isn't it? When people are seeing pink triangles and worrying
Yeah,
about it
that
when
again,
they're
that's
not
on
really
you.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, what's wrong with that? Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but
Well,
also
that's
what's
the
wrong
next
So,
with that?
question.
yeah.
All right. News story number 2. At last, we get to Taylor. And this is about the fake Taylor Swift book that nonetheless racked up sales. This actually started a few weeks ago, but I'm finally getting to it now because we finally know the end of the story. This book was published by Bantam. It's an imprint of Penguin Random House. Them again, major publisher. They released the book Argylle, which of course is a tie-in with the Henry Cavill film that came out, like a weekend or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the novelization is attributed to the author Ellie Conway. Technically, it's a movie tie-in edition, but the controversy is about how this book was marketed, because even though it's attributed to this Ellie Conway, which is a pen name, and the actual authors were not identified, this publisher was working pretty hard to make people believe it was written by Taylor Swift. Now, let me just, Jesse, can you show the picture of the cat in the backpack? Just in case you aren't a Swiftie, you may know, or you may not know, that she has a Scottish fold cat, a breed which is now insanely popular because of Taylor Swift. And if you've watched the documentary that's on Netflix, it's called Miss Americana, you can actually see her walking with a backpack that looks a lot like this one, with a cat that looks a lot like that one, poking its head out the window. Now, to be fair, the one in the movie isn't Argylle, but it's well known that Taylor really likes that pattern, so all the pieces were in place. But it got out of control. Obviously, it didn't take long before the Swifties, who are apparently a formidable group of super sleuths, picked up on all of this and started debating on the internet, could it really be Taylor Swift? But Penguin Random House was very much encouraging this confusion. In fact, they went all in on it, even though they knew it was not true. And this comes to the part where I'm explaining why I sat on this story for a while, because it had not been officially announced who wrote this book, but now it has. It was actually written by 2 collaborating writers, neither of whom is Taylor Swift. Nonetheless, Jesse, show them the post that Penguin Random House used to pitch this book, specifically targeting Taylor Swift fan accounts. Just in case you can't read what it says above the picture there, it says, "We're excited to offer you a complimentary copy of Argylle by Ellie Conway," and then in parentheses, "or Taylor Swift, question mark." So they're sending this out to promote the book, even though they know perfectly well Taylor Swift did not write it. Lara, is this an ethical way to promote a book?
I saw this article and I don't approve. I didn't care for it. I think, first of all, you're just going to inflame a group of people that you don't want to inflame.
Right.
I personally believe in truth in marketing, but I'm not really a marketing person. And maybe that's why I'm not terribly good at marketing, because I do try to be very honest.
Because it's not easy is the real reason.
Well, that's
Nothing
fair. But
about it is.
I don't know. This rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. Jesse, what about you? Do you approve of this? Or does this seem like the sort of underhanded thing your arch nemesis, James Patterson, might do?
It does have the flavor of what. Yeah, no, like this is almost stupider than what James Harrison does, in the sense that, like, first of all, it is a book from the fake author that is the main character of the Argylle movie.
Yeah, I didn't even dive into that, but you're totally right.
So it's like, do you remember the TV show Castle? Okay.
I know what it is. Yep.
Yes. So they released a lot of fake like real books authored by the fake Richard Castle, right? We actually own a lot of them because they're hilariously bad, but also quasi entertaining. This is like that where I'm like, they're trying to sell this obviously this fake book to push the movie that is out now, and I'm like, if Taylor Swift wrote a book, what makes people think she wouldn't tell people that she wrote a book?
It does
Like,
seem like it would be the more sensible thing to do, wouldn't
I
it?
know that she likes to leave clues in her lyrics and whatnot, but like also this movie was in production for a while, so like there's no way they knew that like Taylor Swift would be peak Taylor when
That's
this movie came out.
Mhm.
So it just seems like a lot of just like just like both good and bad timing for this. So
Mhm.
I saw one of those backpacks with the little cat glass at
Mhm.
a pizza place here in town when I was having lunch with Barry one day, and I'm just like, oh, those backpacks actually exist. So
Oh, I bet Barry ran out and bought one, didn't he?
oh, he was not happy about a cat being in the pizza place for sure. So
Okay, here's the thing. I looked at the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, and I think this relates to what you were saying about the Castle books, because it's pretty clear that Penguin Random House knew they didn't exactly have a stellar book here, but they nonetheless seized on this lame-o marketing opportunity to sell it by co-opting Taylor Swift's fan base, right? I mean, they might as well handed out face friendship bracelets with it or something, and it's completely disingenuous and seems like not the, or maybe I'll just start handing out friendship bracelets with my next book. I don't know, but seems like not the way to do it. All right.
it's listen. And what's funny is like they were doing this to hand out free copies of the book.
Right.
So not even to sell more copies of the book.
Mm.
Well, to get people to post about it on the
Yeah.
internet, because that's how you sell books today.
That is true.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right, game. Jesse, cue up that music. Let's talk to Lauren Smith. Lauren, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right, traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
Figure out what you like to write and then figure out how to write it to market. I think that's the biggest challenge. I see a lot of new writers that say, I like to read this one very interesting, unique thing, but then when they try to write it, it kind of isn't matching anything in the market. And while you do
Right.
want some uniqueness in what you're writing, you still need to satisfy reader expectations. So read what you love and then try to learn to write in a similar vein what you love.
Which we hope is something that you'll be able to sell. And I mean, I thought what you were saying about the market was dead on, because in small group retreats and whatnot, so often I get people who are writing things that are not bad, but clearly not commercial. And I'm saying, if that's what you want to do, great, but don't complain later when the sales aren't very good. you're
Right, right.
you're
I mean,
making
it's
a
kind of
choice
important.
here, right?
Exactly.
Speaking of books, you got one, I think it just came out or recently, called Dukes and Diamonds. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's a really fun story. I always try to, when I'm writing historical, whether it's a novella or a novel, this was in a novel, I try to take a kernel of real history and blend it in some way. Maybe I tweak some things, or maybe I keep a real event exactly as it happened and place it in there. And in this particular story, I wrote there's a real jewel thief gang that was all women and run by women. And they would literally run into stores and smash a bunch of cases and steal jewelry and run out. And the police were so afraid of them, they called them the Elephant Gang. They didn't want anywhere near these women. And there was about like 100 women in this gang. And they would
Wow.
literally, it was kind of like the modern looting you'd see today. But I thought that was kind of interesting about a woman run gang in the 1800s. You don't normally think of women running criminal enterprises.
No.
And I thought, well, I'm not really wanting to glorify criminal enterprises or have anything kind of negative, but I like the idea of women deciding to steal things. And for me, I always like to have heroines that have more noble purposes. So I thought,
Yeah.
what if I had two rich women who are seeing other people in society misbehaving and causing problems, whether to
Mm-hmm.
poor people or to other people in their social circles. And to punish them, they decide to steal their jewels. And so they recruit a pickpocket from the streets who's an excellent, at her job. And they
Mm-hmm.
say, we're going to teach you to be a lady and you're going to act like us. We're going to tell everybody that you're one of our friends' cousins. And then you're going to help us rob these people, like in the middle of balls, during tea parties, at night while they're asleep. And so they make the mistake, though, of targeting a duke who had broken up an
Mm-hmm.
engagement to one of their friends, and their friend had been so cast out into society she had to leave England and go to the United States. And so they thought, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
punish this guy. So he has a big old diamond and we're going to steal it. And then it kind of, of course, then she gets caught trying to steal the diamond. The duke shoots her, and it's this whole thing. So,
Yeah.
true love story, meet cute, all of that. So it's just kind of a
Sounds,
fun, different take.
oh, good. Sounds like fun.
It is.
I like hearing your process of developing that. That's very interesting to me. And it sounds like your interest in romantic fiction began when you attempted to rewrite the entire Titanic movie just to save Jack from drowning. So again, here we're seeing how your brain kind of works things around to the way you want them to be.
Exactly. I was only 10 when I tried that, and the funny thing is I didn't know that I ended up being a romance writer until in my, like, mid to late 20s, and it was just really funny that I look back and I'm like, I actually sat down with the VHS tapes and just played minute by minute, would pause the VHS tape and then write a whole scene, and my whole point was to get to the end and then save Jack from drowning. But I think my, 10-year-old self tired out about the first half hour into the movie with like one notebook full, and then I gave up.
That's
Did,
adorable, though. I love
what,
that.
did you give Jack some kind of super flannel underwear, or how'd you work this?
I don't even know I think I was just going to have them fit on the door together, but
Yeah.
Ah,
I never even
well.
got there. I think I was still in the submarine where they just discovered the artwork, before I gave up. Because I was writing from like the very beginning. I didn't just cut to the end. I was like literally, it was almost like a screenplay, but not.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Well, I mean, we know romance is the most popular genre by a large margin. Why do you think that is?
It's funny. I'm really strongly opinionated about romance, and I think it's because I lived my whole life not having a good perception of it. My grandma was a big romance reader. My mother was very anti-romance because she was very opposite my grandmother. So it was like more like a mother-daughter battle. And I just came to it with kind of no opinion whatsoever. I just thought I don't want to read it. I have no interest in it. And it wasn't until law school when I went to a writer group one time and I was writing what I thought was epic fantasy, like the next Game of Thrones. And this older woman, a critique group, she just pulls me aside. She goes, honey, you write romance. And I went, oh, no, I don't. Oh my God, how dare you say that? And she's like, here's Paul Roberts, read it and talk to me next week. And she
Yeah.
gave me a used book and I read it and I went, maybe I do write romance. And then maybe I kind of like this. And then I went to the Borders that was near my apartment that day and I bought like maybe 20 paperbacks of all subgenres of romance, like, paranormals, historical,
Mhm.
contemporaries. And it's just like, I'm going to try everything. And I just, from then on, it was like, this is what I write. This is what I love. And I think the thing that, people take for granted is that romance is a female empowered storyline. And I think there's a lot of stories out there where women, especially in Hollywood, you see this. Women are used to continue a male storyline. They're usually killed. They're usually part of a revenge plan. They're like we don't call them agents of change. So they are there as stagnant characters for the males to have journeys. And the best thing about romance is it's not only hero centric, but it's heroine centric. So it shows that marriage and romance is a partnership. Both the hero and heroine mostly have equal page time. They work
Mhm.
together. It's not about just shirtless, gorgeous men. It's about understanding someone else's point of view, learning to accept flaws and overcome challenges. And I think that's the strongest message about romance. It's the healthiest message. And it creates empathy among readers. They've done, the Wall Street Journal and the University of Toronto have like reported on studies of that.
Mhm.
And I just find it sad that the average society mocks what is so beautiful. I mean, I don't know anything more powerful than love in this universe. What else is
Hmm.
there to die for or to live for than to love other people in whatever form of love that is? And romance is not just romantic love. It can be between parents, siblings, neighbors, friends, strangers. I mean, that's the beauty, is that when you read and write these books, you're seeing relationships in such a deeper and more meaningful way, all relationships. Like the current story that
Hmm.
I'm writing right now has a storyline where the father is going to die, and it's going to deeply affect the heroine, who it's her father, but yet the hero who had only just met him feels like this is the dad he should have had his whole life, and it's a whole other type of relationship. And I
Hmm.
get to build on that, and that's not a romantic relationship, it's love nonetheless. And I think that's the beautiful part of romance, is that you get to explore the realities of our human heart, and all that comes with it.
Right.
I think
Okay.
you really did a good job of encapsulating exactly why I so very much enjoy women's fiction and romantic women's fiction, for the very reasons that you just illuminated. And you also made an excellent point for joining a writers group, because it opened the door for you to what has been a very successful um, path now.
Absolutely. That definitely changed my life.
So let me ask a follow-up question that might be a little trickier. So yes, absolutely, romance sells better than any other genre by a big margin. But I have read that mystery thrillers are checked out of libraries more often. What do you think makes the difference? Why do you think that is?
That's actually an easy question to answer. I know that sounds silly, but so romance readers tend to be, because of society's perceptions, more embarrassed by what they read.
Right.
So they tend to read digitally. And they also are more loyal readers, and they tend to buy the books because they like to reread. I know so many readers that will reread favorite series. And so if they check it from the library, they lose it, and they also lose track of what series they've read. So when they buy the Kindle editions, it stays in grouped collections inside their sublibraries, and that way it's kind of like a reading log. They keep track of what they've read, and it's easier for them.
Hmm.
Whereas the standard mystery reader tends to be unashamed that they're reading mysteries and
Right.
thrillers, and that also, those types of people tend to be at libraries more often, because I usually write at libraries, and I see the kind of personality that gets those books. It's usually middle-aged women between, I would say, 40 to about age 75.
Are we talking about mysteries or romance at this point?
Mysteries and
Mysteries.
thrillers are
Okay.
actually the heavily read female audience, which
Hmm.
women tend
Yeah.
to read
Oh,
a
I
little bit
know.
more than men in general. But yeah, they frequent libraries more because they're less embarrassed. It's just that
Right.
simple.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Lauren.
I had a coworker bring a book to me once. This was, I don't know, over a decade ago, 15 years ago. She had a book she really wanted me to read, and she literally brought it to me wrapped up in brown
Oh
paper because
no.
she was so embarrassed. You're absolutely right that there's a stigma associated with that. But here I am all these years later now with my e-reader on book 20 in the series that she started me on. No one knows what I'm reading except Bill, because he leans
Right.
over at night and checks.
Lauren, I visited your website this morning, and at this point, I think you've won more awards than any artist other than Taylor Swift, including Rita nominations. And I think that's the big deal in the romance world. What is your secret? Tell us
Uh,
all how we can do as well and win all these awards.
It's honestly 2 things, and the funny thing is I've kind of stopped entering contests because I felt bad that I thought, "Okay, I've gotten as big as I can get. I should just let other people
Right.
enter
It's
contests now."
like the actor who drops out of the Emmys after they won 5 times for the
Yeah.
same role. Yes, that's you.
I wanna give other people the opportunity, because when I won my very first contest, it was with an editor at, I think it was Penguin. She was at Penguin at the time, and I literally got the notification at 10 o'clock at night, and I literally sat up in bed, read it on my phone, and started screaming. And I'm not a screamer. I'm not at sporting events, my heart will be pounding, but I don't yell or even clap that much.
Right.
I mean, I very much internalize my reactions. So for me to be screaming in my house with joy was how much that it really did touch me, that this was the journey, because she said in her comments that she would buy the whole series. And I thought, this is my door in, this is my way to being a published author. And it's not that I've been chasing that feeling ever since. It's more that I've picked contests where I have felt there were editors or opportunities that were offered. So if anybody's interested
Hmm.
in contests, look at what you get for prizes. Is it money? Is it getting in front of an editor or an agent that you're interested in? If the editor or agent doesn't read or enjoy, like if they're not a historical romance reader and you're entering the historical romance thing, be prepared to not get a request for a manuscript. So be smart about it is what I would say. Pick logically the ones that have an advantage to your career. And then more importantly, make sure that first, 3 chapters, however many pages, needs to be absolutely polished. I made sure that the
Hmm.
first 50 pages, because some contests have more pages they allow, um, they need to be perfect. They need to be spotless on character. They need to have been read multiple times by people comfortable in your genre. So if it's a mystery thriller, and it's a certain type of thriller, or is it a cozy, or is it, make sure you've had people who have the reader expectation of what you should be writing read that. Do not allow people to beta read. I think the biggest misuse of anything in our industry is beta services. I see a lot of big names saying, I've sent it off to my betas. And whenever I later talk to them, and they have an issue with their manuscript that comes back in reviews, I said, well, you send this to beta people, right? And you find out the betas aren't as qualified. So
Hmm.
I prefer to send things to editors and then to real readers who read voraciously. So I have a group of maybe 5 or 6 trusted individuals who I know their strengths and weaknesses, and they're just real readers. They don't have any editing experience. They're not editors. They're not proofreaders. They read strictly for, I didn't like this. I like this. I hated that. That didn't make sense. And if I'm worried about the book, I send to those people. But now I'm so comfortable in my rhythms and my patterns and what readers like that I don't have to rely on them anymore. And now
Right.
they're just my normal kind of ARC team when they read the book when it's done. But in the early stages of my career, they were very vital for me in writing correctly, because that's how you win those contests, is making sure those pages are polished but also written to market.
Hmm. Wow. Hey, you're part of the faculty this year for the WriterCon Cruise, so you probably knew I'd bring that up. And
Yes.
by the way, aside to listeners, it is not too late to register. Go to writercon.com. But anyway, can you talk a little bit about the cruise and what you're going to do there?
Yeah, so I am really excited. I have been on a few writer cruises before with some other groups, just kind of trying out different things. And first of all, I love cruises. Cruises are really
Yeah.
fun. If you've never been on one, if you're like me, I can't unplug in any environment. And so, being a Pisces, I'm around water. There's literally nothing for me to do. All I can do is relax. And that to me is one of the biggest benefits. And then being surrounded by people who talk and think like you. I mean, I
Right.
don't know about you, but we tend to be introverted. But when I sit down at a table with writers, I'm never introverted. The conversations
Mm,
we have, everybody understands what it's like to have characters talk to you, what it's like to have a plot
exactly.
twist, or how you're structuring a series, just these things that can come up. And
Hmm.
so I'm excited to meet everyone that attends the cruise, and I would be happy to do, unofficial one-on-one sessions with anybody that just wants to chat about their career ideas or book ideas, or what they have planned for their writer lives. And I'm looking forward to presenting on a number of topics.
Yes,
I can talk
definitely.
about writing, how to get your word count up, mastering writing tension and emotion and conflict in your stories, because emotion and tension and conflict are the 3 most driving things that keep readers turning the pages. And then of course I can talk more about business. If anybody's up to a higher level in business, I can discuss foreign translations and how to build your author brand, and any number of things that people want to talk about. I will have presentations ready.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you've kind of been a pioneer in taking control of your rights, especially those foreign rights that you were just mentioning. How did that get
Yes.
started?
Well, I've always seen myself as, my goal is to be a household name someday. That, they back in the day, they had this phrase, "Everybody loves a Lindsay," which was a Joanna Lindsay. So my joke in my house has been,
Right.
"Everybody loves a Lauren." I want that to be the new saying, because
Well, I'm
Joanna
sure it's
Lindsay is no
true.
longer with us. So I would like to be the new Joanna Lindsay. But I decided early on, being an attorney and being someone that studied business, and I do have a business mind. My mother's a banker, my father's a lawyer. It's unavoidable that I'm a business person despite being
Right.
creative. And having control, I'm very, very obsessed with work products. So not only covers, editing, the overall packaging of books. I spend extra money on interior art spreads so that when people get print books, they've paid extra money and they have beautiful artwork. I was one of the first people that did a fully illustrated book, not a graphic novel, but like a 20 plus illustrated 8.5 by 11 hardback book for one of my best-selling series on its 10th
Nice.
anniversary. And
Oh.
I'm trying to always think about, merchandising rights and foreign rights, and what I always think of is, what do fandoms get obsessed with? Because fandoms are your biggest power. And so I think about, what products do fandoms like? Can I make those? So my next adventure, after I was working on foreign rights, and I'm still, producing a lot of my books in foreign, but we're going to be working on reader merchandising now, where we're using one of those Cricut machines to do special color water bottles that have cute phrases like "Good Girl Academy" connected to, my branding for my series, and just all
Yeah.
sorts of, like, smut reader, seeking romance, just graphics that readers that don't necessarily connect to directly one of my series, but will have subtle Lauren Smith or Emma Castle, my other pen name, branding on it. Because I think when you think about your books, you have to think about all the rights that come with them and the opportunities those present. So you're talking audiobooks, merchandising, film rights, and every writer should always be thinking about, what if my career takes off tomorrow? I need to be protecting those rights and be ready to
Mhm.
act on them, because that's where a lot of extra money can come in.
Right. That's right.
We have quite a few aspiring writers among our listeners. Can you talk to us a little bit about what a typical writing day looks like for you, and maybe a little bit of your process?
I am definitely a pantser, and so when people ask me about my process frequently, and it actually them when I tell, at least when I tell planners what I what I do, or plotters. I always handwrite all my books in a college rule notebook, and I have certain pens that I prefer
Me
based on
too.
yes, it's
Yay.
very important to have the right paper and the right pens. And I can actually, within 1 or 2 pages, target an exact word count now, because I know my average word count is 375 words per front page, and then per back page another 375. So when I write, and I write chronologically, I may write for 30 to 40 minutes at a time, and then I very much get distracted and see a squirrel and run off and do something around my house typically, or go play with my dog, or then I come back and then I do a little bit more writing. And I typically write in the morning. I found my energy level is, my creative energy is better in the morning, and then I can do
Mhm.
administrative work, which is processing tax receipts, looking at earnings, working with graphic designers on graphics, previewing social media content with my social media organizer, and doing those kind of things in the afternoon. But when I first started writing, all editing, and it was no administrative work. And I would say
Mhm.
that the best advice that I've ever heard about the two different types of writers are, it's not just plotters and pansters, but there's also big chunk and little chunk writers. And it's okay to be either a big chunk or a little chunk writer. And what I mean by
Mhm.
that is, I'm a little chunk writer. I will write maybe 1 or 2 pages, and then I need a break, and I got to go do something. And then I come back. And then there are people who are big chunk writers. They will sit for 2 to 3 hours, and they will get everything hammered out, and they can write a long time. And maybe they do more words than I do, but their process works better by working longer and deeper focused. Whereas me, I'm very much 30 to 40 minutes, and then I have to take a break, because the
Mm.
creative well for me needs a little refreshing, a little pause, a little thinking. And I think part of that is because I'm a pantster. I need more time between my chunks to think about where things are going just a few steps ahead,
Mhm.
versus planning out a whole novel. So I would say,
Mm.
explore writing for different lengths of time, writing in different places. I tend to like to write in public. I don't like people talking to me, but I do like seeing people talk. And I have my headphones on with playlists as I'm doing this, but I like the energy of being in restaurants or cafes, or the libraries where I live are usually pretty active with people, and they're well lit. So you're not tempted to take a nap in public. Whereas if I'm at home, I will take a nap. So feel free to explore, where you feel energized, where you feel creative,
Uh-huh.
and don't think you have to just do one thing because somebody else told you that that's how they wrote their best-selling novel, was to do it this way.
Yeah.
I'm all about giving the advice that whatever works for you is what works for you. And I'm always happy to hear someone else giving different examples. And I personally do not have success working in public. And so I wouldn't advise someone. So this is great. It's great when people hear a wide variety of things and they can try them all and find out what works for them. I really like that.
Absolutely.
Lauren, one last question. Other than the cruise, which is, of course, the most important thing, but other than that, what's coming up next for you?
Well, let's see. I will be going to a local signing here at the Hard Rock Casino Hotel in Tulsa, Oklahoma
Mhm.
on April 6th, I believe it's that Saturday. Then
Signing where, if I may ask?
it should be in one of the big ballrooms in the casino at
Really?
the
Is there
Hard
an
Rock.
event or?
Yeah, it's a big
Is
event. It's
is that
called the
the
Hard.
Magic City?
It's
Is it
not the
the
Magic
Magic
City. I got
Okay.
invited to that, and I was so sad that I was literally could not be in 2 places at once.
Yeah.
So I had to tell my other local bookstore, I can't come to that one. I can't apply, but I can, I've gotta be at this other thing that's been in the works for a year and a half now. But, I think it's a big event with 100 authors that will be in that room, but they're all romance. And then, of course, the cruise in April, and then I believe I have, in Kansas City in early August, I will be at the Mid-Continent Public Library for the Romance Genre Con signing on
Mhm.
that Saturday. And then I believe I will be in Salem, Massachusetts for the
Wow.
Getting Witchy signing for romance authors for paranormal romance. So,
That sounds fun. We've been to
yeah.
Salem.
Yeah.
But books, Lauren, have you got any books
Oh,
coming out?
I thought you meant events. You said cruise, so I got off on my event schedule. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I have a really fun book called The Care and Feeding of Rogues that will hopefully be out in May. I'm pretty sure it will be out in May, and it's about a female scientist. She's a naturalist who studies biology, animals, and it's in 1882, and she ends up getting into a wager with her neighbor Sherlock Holmes on Baker Street, and he tends to play the violin during their
Uh,
meetings, and it drives her crazy, and she
that
and these
would,
other women
yeah.
have a
Mm.
society where they learn things, that aren't really taught to women, like engineering and science and astronomy and stuff like that. So she decides that she's gonna win his violin if she learns to study men because he thinks she doesn't know anything about men. So he picks, of course, the worst guy possible for her to study, which is a man who's recently returned from France after killing a man in a duel 12 years ago that forced him into exile. So he
Mhm.
wants her to learn about morally gray men, not just the gentleman down the street that she would typically interact with. So it ends up with this sort of kind of rom-com feel where she's dressing up
Mhm.
like a guy and sneaking into gambling halls and gentlemen's clubs and choking on cigars and whiskey while trying to understand men. She gets in a fight in a card room. It's all very entertaining, but at the same time, she's building a relationship with this titled gentleman with this darker past who is hoping for a new future. So there's of course, a deeper romance that goes on, but
Mhm.
set against the backdrop of this very funny wager with Sherlock Holmes. So that's
Mm.
coming out, and then I will probably have another Regency romance in the fall, and then possibly a contemporary romance around Christmas.
Well, I
Nice.
want to read the Sherlock Holmes one. We're gonna have to have you back for that. I'm sure they're all fabulous, but Sherlock Holmes, how can you resist that?
Thank
Lauren, yeah, exactly. Lauren, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Come again soon, please.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just a few parting words. Lara, give us the update on the WriterCon Cruise.
What can I say? Lauren gave us some really good reasons to go, and I wholeheartedly agree. Getting away, being secluded, but also grouped with your people who are going to be supportive of your writing, there's nothing better. This is where we can really get some good work done while enjoying the ocean, beaches, some awesome destinations. If you're lucky, you might even see some dolphins. I've seen dolphins before, some flying fish. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'll be working with a small group. I can't wait. I'll be presenting about what you have to come on the cruise to find out.
Just to be clear, it's not that we're so secretive, but the courses and what we do, the talks, all revolve around who's there. We ask for manuscripts in advance, so we have some idea where you are in your writer journey and what your book's about, and we can tailor everything to be of most benefit to the people on board, right?
My way was more mysterious and exclusive, but your way is more factual. We did talk about being factual today, so.
Yeah, okay. And let me also remind everyone that WriterCon has its own magazine now, and you don't want to miss the next issue, the last one, the
Mm,
February issue, which of course had a
beautiful,
romance focus. Yeah?
beautiful. It was just a gorgeous issue and so much good stuff in it.
Yeah, good. And also craft articles, marketing, articles on breaking issues. If you're interested, please go to Substack and search for WriterCon Mag. All right? Until next time, writers, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.